Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. My name's Adam, I'm an architect, and long story short, I spent most of my life in the matrix, just, toing, froing, work, home, going there. These aren't the movements of a free person, of a free population, of a free nation, are they? And so, invariably, we run into conditions like stress, anxiety, depression. We take a look around, we see phrases like TGI Friday, Sunday Scaries, Monday Blues. And so we realise that we're not alone in our suffering. And that is understandable, isn't it? When you look at, say, what Krishnamurti said, it's no measure of good health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. So if the system is sick, then by product of that is that we will also be sick. And so on a global level, we have poverty, crime, rent, slavery, which we'll discuss in this video. And, crime, unemployment, general misery, homelessness, starvation, all of these seemingly stubborn social issues that just perennially persist, don't they? They don't seem to be going anywhere. And so one may begin to wonder why that is. But anyway, in the year 2014 was very much a turning point for me. I experienced Satori, a spiritual awakening. It was a very disorienting moment for me. My friend's family thought that I was insane, but I knew that I wasn't. I knew that I'd broken through into a heightened state of consciousness. And a lot of the films that I now know of sort of relay that message, such as The Matrix or The Truman Show or Inception, these kind of things. And so once you experience that, you start to research, what the hell's going on? Because not only do you awaken to the light, you also awaken to the darkness. You begin to realize that these problems in the world exist because they're allowed to exist. And 2020 showed that really well, didn't it? Because they showed how quickly they can actually act on something if they want to. And so there I was, generating the concept that, okay, well, the government is useless. What if we not just replace or not just overthrow the government, but replace it? As Buckminster Fuller said, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And that's what we need to do. We need to create a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And we can do that now, today, with social media and the internet. Like, this is an incredibly powerful technology that we're simply not utilizing and implementing effectively. It's being used for, some great things, but it's also just mostly being used for rather surface level videos. And so what we need to do is realize that we can utilize this power to ultimately do what the government should be doing, but never will. And there are no politicians nor petitions required because we are the people, we are the power of the 99%. We are, out of 8 billion people, the 99%, right? The politicians account for about 0.0000001%. So what is it we actually want the government to do? Like if we lived in a true democracy, which we don't. We currently have this model of taxation, right? Which is basically like, pay us 20% of your income or you're going to jail. And then they just use the money however they're going to continue to use it, which we never see the light of day, various vanity projects, black projects that are going on. So what we need to do is create a 21st century model of taxation, which is ultimately crowdfunding, so that we can do what everyone would want to do if we had a true democracy. What would people ask for? Well, if you think of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, you'll see that security and safety and those physiological needs are right at the bottom, the foundation of our lives. And so, understandably, people would want shelter, energy, food and water. Those things that we fundamentally need, we don't want them, we actually need them. And it doesn't make any sense why the money that we're giving the government wouldn't be used on these things. So I'm not even talking about affordable housing, which is a joke because it's just 80% of market rate. I'm talking about free housing. Like, okay, we're paying money for the government to do something benevolent, and that's to return. It's just how we would be operating if we were on a tiny little island, right? And we just got washed up at shore. It's like, what are we going to do? Are we going to get some materials? And at what point would we start charging ourselves to exist? And so this is ultimately what we'd be crowdfunding in it, and it would operate through two phases. The first phase would be money would go towards advertising and exposure, because it's the exposure that's powerful, and it would culminate in the acquisition and crowdsourcing of either suburban or rural land. And it doesn't matter where it is in the world for now, it's just people need to just understand the concept. And so once that's happened, we can have a party on the land. We can realise that this is the way forwards. And the more this happens, the more it will snowball into society and become a much larger phenomenon. And once we've got the land, now we can open up phase 2, which is about the crowdsourcing of democratic co-housing environments. Co-housing is simply a community of private apartments supplemented by shared spaces. So if you imagine you've got living alone over here in this circle, and you've got living together in this circle, and now if you just imagine a Venn diagram of these two coming together, co-housing is right in the middle there. So it's balancing those two extremes, which I think is a nice model. And I've lived in some co-housing schemes myself, but they're too expensive. They're ridiculous. They're only really for the middle classes and the rich. And so what I'm saying is let's build these and design these for people, not profit. And so once these things are built, they will comprise 5 key typologies. One of them is community, town hall meetings, for example, any sort of event you can imagine, ways for us coming together and discussing what and how we want to live. It'll also be used for dining halls. The residential area will comprise studios, 1 beds, and also studios, which is just 2 studios plugged together with a single kitchen. It'll also be based around a productive zone. So it will be a replacement to this excessively controlled international food network that sees our food sprayed with glyphosate, herbicides, pesticides, and GMOs and all the rest of it. There would be total transparency from this permacultural way of life by way of hydroponics, and a far better environment for us to actually realise that the food that we're eating has been sourced from the comfort of our own homes and is therefore free from all the things that otherwise have to be sprayed onto our food. And an industrial space where systems, I won't get too technical on you, but it's essentially systems and technologies that allow us, as long as we have air, which has vapour, we can condense that into water. As long as we have water, we will have the seeds that will recursively recreate plants. As long as we've got the plants, we've not only got food, we've also got a waste product that can be fed into bio fuel generators through a process called methanogenesis. And we can have electricity from the burning and combustion of that gas. So it's a recursive autonomous system. Autonomy simply meaning freedom from external control. That's one of the operative words. And the final zone that I haven't mentioned yet is the creative zone, where people will have all sort of humanitarian hubs, where people will have charitable projects that people would like to work on. And guests who come here will be able to fulfill their desires to help the world in some way. And so one of the burning questions is, well, how does it operate? Well, if you just imagine an Airbnb or a hotel or anything where you have to place a booking, this is essentially what would take place. And so it would be done through 3 tiers, employed, misemployed, and unemployed. So for the employed, they would stay for perhaps a month, at which point they can sublet their existing room and just get to see that this is a tangible concept, this is workable. For the misemployed, they could perhaps stay for up to 3 months. Whilst they try and turn their lives around, they want to try and sort of work on their portfolio and get back on their feet. And then for the unemployed, they could perhaps stay longer for, say, 6 months and try and get them, we'll be working with existing charities to get them back on their feet and perhaps get them a job that they feel passionate about. And so this transient occupation will become more permanent as these things roll out in society. So this is the whole paradigm shift, a sort of revolution of the housing industry of sorts. And so eventually this will just simply be a way of life. And so the volunteers who will be working here will be essentially paid in rent. And they will be perhaps part-time, in which they can carry out their duties and interests and work, whatever they're doing outside of these co-housing. But they're also able to help with perhaps, we will be taking urban farmers, for example, people who are interested in permaculture and growing fruits and vegetables. Also designers who enjoy working on some of the future projects that we might have, like whether you're an architect or an engineer or a structural engineer or whatever. And there will also be just your everyday tasks that need doing, like cleaning and reception work, and there'll be a kitchen, so there'll be lots of cooking. So there's a variety of positions available for people once this gets up and running. And so, you know, in a nutshell, really, that is essentially like the project. I feel like it's such a simple thing, but people overcomplicate it because they are consumed with the political spectrum. They start calling me and branding me either a communist or even like something that's right wing and fascist. I mean, it's quite fascinating, some of the comments that I've had, so varied. And it just goes to show how far we've come from the simple notion of freedom, which all the other animals on this planet are experiencing. Remember, we're just on this tiny little rock in space, and ultimately idealism becomes realism. So, you know, these ideas have to be sown first in imagination, and they have to become palatable so that people actually understand that they're a real world solution that can actually take place. And that's really what the sort of stage that we need to break through into, because of course it's still hypothetical, but I'd like you to see how easily it could be done, that we could reach 500,000, 1 million people, 2 million, 3 million, so on and so forth. And this can replace the government, not overthrow the government, but replace it in that regard, because we will have the money that otherwise only these huge control mechanisms have. And so in that sense, we can decentralize this centralized system. I feel like this is an antidote to a lot of the nefarious aspects of Agenda 2030, which when you have a look at their 17 sustainability goals, you will sort of see, you know, that on the surface of it, these things seem fine, but what they're not telling you is that there is a control mechanism that lies underneath this, and that you will effectively be enslaved by way of not being able to freely move around the country, let alone the planet, you know, under the guise of things like environment and, you know, what happened in 2020, for example. So there's a lot of nefarious things going on there, but on the surface of it, you know, again, it's about balancing certain things out. So sometimes you might look on the site and think, oh, this looks a bit woke, or it looks, or for other people who are already on the woke spectrum, you know, oh, this sounds very like autonomy. Oh no, like this is all very right wing and fascist, and like you're breaking away. It's like, no, we're not breaking away from anything. Like, we're actually coming together socially, like in a human way. We're coming together and forging social networks. It's just that the actual infrastructure now needs to be upgraded into an autonomous model, so that we're not dependent on water coming into the homes from over there, and food being shipped from way over there, and energy coming in, which 2/3 of which is lost through the cables, through heat. All of this stuff is an antiquated paradigm, I feel, and we now have the opportunity, if you'd like to come on this journey with me, at newearth.land. It's something, like I say, I've been trying to do for a few years now. You know, I ran into a lot of censorship issues, but I just thought I'd do this video to create a kind of holistic space in which you can sort of gauge the entire concept in its most sort of coarse level, if you like. So I hope that is of interest to you. Do get in touch, adam@newearth.land, if you are interested. And really what I'm hoping to do, I think, going forwards, is to start like a weekly Zoom call, a group of us who can sort of motivate ourselves to create content, and we can all brainstorm like what it is we need to talk about, because I'm finding it very difficult doing this on my own. So, you know, if you are interested in that, then like I say, do drop me an email, adam@newearth.land. Do comment on this video. Like, let's try and get like the algorithm working in favor for something that could be very beneficial for so many people. If you imagine how much more money they'd have on a monthly basis when we're not paying rent, we're not paying bills, those things can be a thing of the past if we want them to be. It's just a choice, you know. It's always about organisation and coordination. That's at the core of everything going forwards. So thank you very much for your time. I will be making more videos on a playlist called The Path to Post-Capitalism, as I will on a playlist called The Logical Path to Enlightenment, because I feel like we need to raise human consciousness in parallel with sort of raising awareness of these more secular affairs and the social solutions that I'm outlining. But yes, I will leave it there at, you know, pretty much 15 minutes. There's so much more to discuss, but I can't really go into too much detail yet, because I don't really have the following. I don't have enough interest gathered yet. So anyway, though, thanks for your time, and I will hopefully speak to you super soon.